Okay, I'll have to be very careful not to use the certain words, keywords. Well, let's call it, I don't know, Caramba, and now they're calling it Caramba Carnage.
Carnage, the worst day for shares since the GFC. A $137 billion rout takes the ASX to the brink of a crash.
And this next segment calls it the Caramba Storm.
Storm blows through shipping. Container traffic down nearly 40% as the global slowdown ripples through the economy.
And to just cap it off in the 30 or so seconds of this Monday, the business program, they've called it Caramba Contagion.
Contagion is pushing the stock market to new records, and they're all down. The ASX 200 has crashed below 6,000 points. The market.
Oh, by the way, I have an anecdote why they are going to actually kill the economy in the long run. It doesn't mean that in the short run and in the medium term there's no light at the end of the tunnel. There definitely is. There's opportunities. That's what we're going to discuss. But I'll give you an anecdote why I think they're going to stop the travel one way or the other. This Caramba thing is not going to help, but it's the beginning of it.
Market's worst day since the global financial crisis. The top 200 stocks closed down a massive 7.3%. The horror day wiped $137 billion from the index and more than $400 billion over the past 3 weeks. The ASX is now on the brink of a bear market, shedding nearly 20% since the 20th of February and giving up all the gains of the past year. Energy stocks were smashed. The sector closed down 20% after Saudi Arabia slashed prices in what looks like becoming a full-scale price war against the Russians. And
A war against the Russians. And if anything, if you've been following this hasn't been a war against the Russians and Saudi Arabia. If anything, they're both pumping oil like there's no tomorrow. It is flooding the market, but the oil, in my opinion, is dropping in price because of the lack of demand and the expected lack of demand. Oil always crashes when there's a slowdown in the economies. So the fact that they're pumping a lot more is not helping, of course, and then the Caramba is not helping, but it's definitely not a war, between Saudis and Russians at all. If anything, it's going to bring the shale producers down in the US who are, uncompetitive in a sense where the shale, those mines only last for a couple of years, and then the output is greatly diminishes with time, and then you have to continue to find new kind of mines and keep drilling and pumping water in it and chemicals to extract the shale gas and crude, I suppose. So it's not that it's going to put them out of business, which is why Trump is talking about the stimulus for the shale producers, which is actually insane because they had a stimulus for global financial crisis for the banks. Now it's going to be for shale producers. I mean, who's next? You don't need to support industries as a free market, obviously, that are not profitable, that are not contributing to the world economy and domestic US economy. If the oil is down, oil is down. We here in Australia shouldn't do any stimulus for the say coal industry if the coal price goes down or iron ore. I mean, it is what it is. That nobody wants our product. What are we going to do? All of us taxpayers pay the mines because nobody wants their product anymore, and this is it, the end of the game, or at least a trough for some time. All businesses go through it. Individuals go through it. You have a job, you don't have a job. You have a contract, you don't have a contract. I mean, nobody bails you out. Maybe there's a little bit of a social security there, but before you get it, you have to kind of prove that you absolutely have nothing. So unless you are one of those people, you don't really get any bailout.
In a 20-minute flash crash, the Australian dollar slumped to 63 US cents before staging a recovery to above 65 US cents. US futures are pointing to more carnage, with Wall Street set to be clobbered another 5% overnight. I spoke to ANZ's.
Anyway, this was just Monday. Today's Thursday, so a lot happened in between, and it wasn't pretty either. Now, time for my anecdote. I'm flying in from Gold Coast Airport into Sydney, but before I leave the Gold Coast, I am directed to this other line, and it turns out only that line, I think, has this X-ray machine. So they want me to empty out everything out of my pockets. It doesn't have to be metal. It could be anything. So I had a wallet, and they're like, "Oh yeah, wallet too." So everything out of my pockets. I'm completely empty, and then I have to face this machine. I have to stand, put my feet on these yellow markers there, and face that way, and have the hands kind of flat towards the machine. So just in case I'm not doing anything behind, inside my palm of the hand, and or doing some sort of magic trick. I actually couldn't believe it. This is domestic flight. What do they expect? And then I got through there, and there's a man, and he pats me down. He completely, you know how they do it, on the sides and in between and that sort of stuff. And now I'm not one of those guys who's, afraid or, um, let's say, shy. I definitely aren't, so I don't have a problem with it. But I'm not believing what they're doing. I'm only boarding a domestic 1 hour flight. Next thing you know, what are they going to do on the trains? Do the same things, the buses? It takes an hour to get from any of the Sydney suburbs into the city. Takes an hour. That's how long it takes from Gold Coast to Sydney. So what's my point? My point is that they are going to tank the economy. The first thing that came to my mind is, if they're doing this on a domestic flight, what are they going to be doing? Not that I've got anything to hide, but what are they going to be doing on international flights? And I don't think I want to go through it every time I get in and out, change flights, which you tend to happen or do a lot of when you travel overseas. You have to, do stopovers type things. I don't want it to happen. Not to mention that everything else, it is just 1984. It's total control police state, and the reason, I don't even know what the reason is. I mean, we got this Caramba thing going on, but what's that got to do with X-raying me and many other people, and then patting us down, searching for something that we may have had before, but now they've got the machine. It just absolutely doesn't make sense. It does for them. It will prevent more people from traveling. It will prevent people from having that confidence and spending into the economy. And as Martin Armstrong says, they really are going to a nip it in the bud type thing. They're doing everything in their power to do it right now, and the markets are showing they're still hemorrhaging. Whether you have that caramba effect or little things like these X-ray. I was shocked, and whilst it probably isn't going to stop me traveling domestically, because I prefer to travel domestically as my passport's actually expired now 3 years, unless I need to travel for work, I am not going to travel anytime soon. And again, unless there's some sort of a offer I can't refuse. Overseas holidays are overrated, and they can have it. They can have their X-ray machines as much as they want. I'll put up with it only so much, but domestically, maybe internationally, you can just imagine. I remember traveling to the US 2007, and they were really strict then. You can imagine how strict it would have become now. So enough of my, you could call it rant, but this is to be expected. At your nearby, near you, in the at the airport checkpoint gate near you. I told the guy that patted me down, I said, "This is insane," and he didn't know what I was talking about. I said, "This is complete, unjustified and overblown exaggeration." But you know how they're going to sell it to us. It's for our own protection. Again, The Caramba is not going to be stopped by that. If anything, it'll be spread because you got more of a contact with other people. Enough of that. Uh, what's the parting words for this video is keep on a lookout for opportunities. I think they're coming up. We can do what we can from the situation and the cards we have been dealt. So there's not very much more we can do. Just hope for the best. And stay in touch. I'll be creating more of these videos more regular. So talk to you soon.